Hello, I'm Will Yeoman, CEO of Writing WA, and welcome to another episode of Pod Street, Writing WA's official podcast. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce Simon Harding, who's Chief Executive Officer of Fabel, which offers a really interesting and innovative way for readers and writers to engage with each other. Fabel is a not-for-profit blockchain-based marketplace for stories that balances the needs of both writers and readers. And particularly importantly too, at the moment, they are conducting the Fable World Short Story Competition, and there's some serious money to be won by a lucky author or authors. So Simon, welcome to Pod Street.
Thank you, Will. Lovely to be here.
Now, look, I'm really interested in this model that you guys have come up with, and more about you, of course, as well as a published author. And I think we're seeing a lot of these kinds of alternative ways for readers and writers to connect. I'm a big fan of Substack, for example, as you know. So just tell me a little bit more about how this idea even came about.
Oh, it's a long story. I think in short, like most writers, my experience is that the writing effort is huge. You spend months, years writing a book, probably 17, 18 different versions of your novel. And then once you've done that, you then have to find a way to publish your book. So you tout your book around different publishers, you send it to agents. And that's kind of how we've been groomed that the marketplace works. And it's been working like that for hundreds of years. But the problem is that what I've realized and the people that I work with have realized is that actually the market is fundamentally broken. And so let me try and give you an example of why that's the case, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So there are billions of readers throughout the world. And there's a mature distribution to bring system to bring stories to them. So in most cases, you can buy a story these days within minutes. So when you put those two together, it should make writing a very simple, rewarding, and profitable business. But it doesn't. And in fact, I know as a writer that most writers are unable to earn a living from writing books. And we've got the evidence from that from a survey by the Authors Guild of America in 2022, which found that the median income from books for full-time authors was just $10,000 a year, which is
it's not ideal.
No, that's right. It probably encapsulates the problem for most authors out there. They have to supplement their income. And that's kind of describes me as a writer too. I'd like to think that I'm a novelist, but actually I have to supplement my income by writing things for other people. And when people say, have you written something else? I say, well, no, I haven't got time. I can't sit there and write stuff that doesn't pay money when there are things that do pay money. So I started digging into, well, why is that the case? What is wrong with the market that people can't earn money from them? And there are a few different answers. So the first one is that the number of stories being published each year has grown exponentially thanks to the arrival of Amazon, print on demand, et cetera, and competition is fierce. And we think that the pinnacle of publishing is to send your book to a traditional publisher. And if you're able to secure a traditional publishing deal, then you've made it as an author. But actually, the statistics would say that you don't. Only 6.7% of traditionally published books sell more than 10,000 copies. So if you imagine that potentially you're only earning $1 worth of royalties for each book that you've sold, that's not a lot of money. If you decide that you're going to go down the independent publishing route, 90% of all independently published stories sell less than 100 copies. Full stop.
Oh, that's very sobering, isn't it?
It's very sobering. That's right. So you slave away. You have this passion for writing, and yet you're facing fierce competition. And one of the reasons that you're facing fierce competition is that the classifications used in the market are no longer fit for purpose. So they were originally designed by Plato. He introduced three genres of literature: poetry, drama, and prose, and it all made real sense back in ancient Greece because there wasn't a huge amount of literature. And for hundreds of years, that's what happened. But the trouble is that as the number of books hitting the marketplace are growing more and more, so those genres are actually becoming more of a problem than they are a solution. So best-selling author Rick Moody once said, genre is a bookstore problem, not a literary problem. So as an author, I get asked, well, what genre do you write in? And the answer is, well, I think my piece of work is a unique piece of work. I actually don't like to put it in a box. I like to say it's my own. So, and the problem is that there are 500,000 works of fiction that are published each year, and they're put into just 144 genres and subgenres. So if you do the maths, that's about 3,000 in each of those on average. And so it's no wonder that books have to be heavily promoted. Otherwise, there's no way that they can be read, no way that they can be found by readers who are searching for them.
Indeed. So hence this model you guys have come up with, which hopefully will be designed to match the perfect reader with the perfect book that they're seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what defines a book goes far more than whether it's fantasy or whether it's science fiction.
Yes.
It's the components that are in that book that are interesting for readers. Sure, there's mileage in knowing that a book is a sci-fi book, but actually we need to look deeper than that. We want to, if we're reading fantasy, we might want to read something that's got witches in it, wizards, vampires. We might want to read something that's set in a particular location. We might want a character that's got particular traits. And above all, we probably want to search for how we want a book to make us feel. There are books out there that are going to make us feel sad. There are ones that are going to make us feel excited. They're going to uplift us. Shouldn't we be able to search for that?
Absolutely.
So what we want to do is we want to use artificial intelligence to help us to, excuse me, we want to use artificial intelligence to help us to develop a tagging system for stories.
Yes.
And the idea will be that you tell artificial intelligence the type of books that you like to read. It gives you a pre-populated list because we know that nobody's going to sit there and key in 500 tags that they're looking for. And then you turn them on, you turn them off, and then your results will come back a bit like a Netflix screen, except your stories won't be grouped by genre or subgenre. They'll be grouped by the percentage match to the tags that you're searching for.
So essentially, it's a much more efficient way of using, I guess, just using plain data, raw data, and honing in on people's predilections, people's tastes, people's preferences, and matching them up, as we said, with exactly what they're after, irrespective of genre. So it goes, as you say, it goes beyond genre.
Absolutely, that's right, and that's why one of our taglines is "Search Beyond Genre," because that's what we fundamentally believe. And I think the other thing too is that when you're being returned 30,000 search results, or in the case of fantasy, probably 70,000 results, you're reliant on reading the first few pages of search results that you get, which are heavily promoted.
Indeed.
So those ones on those first couple of pages have been promoted to within an inch of their life. By taking the search down to a much more granular level, what happens is that the number of search results you get, if you've got 500 active tags, the number of books that are going to match those tags isn't going to be a huge number. So actually, by delivering you the books that match your active search criteria, we can limit the need for promotion. So effectively, there's actually no opportunity to promote books on the Fabel website. They're literally delivered to readers based on what they're looking for.
That's incredible. I mean, so we've talked a lot about readers and what readers will be getting. This is also a platform for authors, for writers. How's it going to work from that perspective?
Well, one of the biggest drawbacks for the publishing industry is that there are so many people involved in the process, whether that's agents, publishers, distributors, retailers, that by the time they've all taken their cut, there's nothing left for the author. And all of them, companies like Amazon, for example, have positioned themselves deliberately in between writers and readers. And, even if you sell a book on Amazon, you have no idea who you've sold that book to. So what we're doing is we're creating a marketplace that brings writers and readers together. And thanks to blockchain technology, we can literally create it so that in the marketplace, a reader purchases a book. Immediately they purchase the book. The amount of money they paid for that book goes directly to the author, 100% royalties.
That's incredible, actually. I mean, it's very exciting. Yeah. To what extent, and I know we don't want to forget about talking about this, so I'm going to talk about it right now, which is the amazing short story competition that you guys are running at the moment. tell me more about that and the motivations behind that and how that actually fits into this model as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, like any startup, we have to get our name out there. We have to find a way to show people that Fable is out and about and
Yes.
trying to do what we're trying to do. And we thought, well, writing, the best way to do that is for us to get our name out there with a short story competition. And if you notice the detail of the short story competition, it's a little bit different to most short stories. So the first one is that we don't expect writers to go and write a short story so that they can enter it into our competition. We haven't provided a brief. And the reason we haven't provided a brief is that we actually want all of a writer's old short stories to get some time in the sun. We know that it's unlikely that somebody will have only written one short story. Most authors who write short stories have got 10, 15 in their drawer somewhere. Some they wrote 20 years ago that are never going to see the light of day again. What we want is for them to have an opportunity to upload them into our competition. And what we're doing is we're trying to make it so that the publishing industry is full of subjectivity. If you submit a book to I must remember to take a breath when I'm talking, actually. If you're submitting a book to a publisher, you're relying very much on their subjective judgment of A, whether they like your book, and B, how likely it is that they're going to be able to make money in the marketplace from your book. But we actually think that the most important arbiter of quality is actually the reader. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that readers are involved in the judging process for our competition.
I've noticed that. I was just about to mention that too. Yeah, so the stories are long listed by the readers and not the judges, and the winners are decided by a public vote. That's quite interesting as well.
Absolutely. And actually, from a philosophical perspective, it would have been really good to go with readers all the way through that process.
Sure.
But what we actually wanted to make sure was we were able to demonstrate some credibility in the industry. So we've got four industry judges plus me.
Yes.
Who will be casting their eye over and bringing that down to a short list of 10.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we mustn't, just if you may just jump in for a second, we must not forget one of the most important things, which is the prize pool's $27,500 Australian dollars, and the first prize is 16,000 Australian dollars. So that's actually pretty serious money.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And we wanted to make it so that people stood up and took notice of the prize. And we also wanted to make sure that the prize was a little bit deeper than normal. So we're not just giving that $27,500 away to the first three stories. What we want to do is we want to make it so that everyone who's been recognised as part of this competition is able to take away a prize. So any book that makes the long list will earn a $50 prize. Any book that makes the shortlist will earn a $500 prize, and then there's the three winners.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, because you often hear that. You often hear from other competitions, and also, some of the state book awards, for example, where the top winners, they get the prize and everything, they get the money. Shortlisted or longlisted authors, they get a bit of recognition, but they don't actually get anything. They don't get any money out of it or anything. And often they say, well, that was a bit of a waste of time. It's like, how does it further my career, really?
Absolutely, and that's another reason why we want those old short stories to be put into the competition, because that once the short story's been entered into a competition, well, that's it. What else are you going to do with your short story? There's no real market for it unless you can get it into a short story publication or anthology. So let's try and find a way of getting some time in the sun.
Oh, look, I think that's lovely, and I also noticed that you can upload multiple entries for just the one fee as well.
Correct, and that's exactly why we tried to do that. We're not trying to earn money as a part of this. Effectively, a short story competition is a promotional tool rather than anything else. I mean, in this circumstance, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, well, yeah, we do need to cover some of the administration costs that we've got in running this competition, but ultimately, what we want are your stories.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's amazing. And now, is it right to say that you guys are still in development at the moment? It's very much early days.
Yeah, it's very much early days. What we're doing at the moment is we're trying to build a coalition of support for what we're doing. I mean, everyone that we've spoken to so far is very excited about the approach that we're taking. What we want to be able to show is that, we've got organisations like Writing WA supporting what we're doing and talking about us in a public forum. And then once we're ready, we will then need to go and get some venture capital and bring this thing to market. So that's our ultimate plan, and things have to start somewhere, and this is kind of where we are at this point.
Look, as I say, it's incredibly exciting, and I think the more opportunities one can provide for writers and readers today, the better. Because, as you say, so much of the publishing industry is working on an outdated model. And I keep reading about some other writers too, some of whom have actually been published in the past by major publishing houses, but have just got a little bit fed up, whether it's to do with the royalties or the amount of time it takes between submitting a manuscript. It could be up to 2 years in some cases, and seeing the finished product and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go down the independent route. And you really are. You're seeing that more and more, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, that's right. And I probably should add that what we're not trying to do on Fable is to take anything away from any of those other markets.
No,
There's
of
no
course not.
exclusivity to that uploading a story on Fable. All we're trying to do is to add an additional avenue to market that we hope will allow authors to earn money.
Absolutely. I think a diverse sector is to everyone's benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, over time, it may well be that the default is that people come to Fable. But, we're certainly not trying to stop people or take people away from that sheer joy of seeing your book in print in your hand. We all know how good that feels. But we also need to be realistic and understand that writers need to earn money.
Indeed, as most of us do. Maybe look, as a last question, if you don't mind, Simon, I'd love to know a little bit more about your personal journey and why you wanted to become a writer in the first place.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I don't think I can answer that question very well. I literally, sometimes when you're going through some of your darker days, whether family circumstances or whatever, I think maybe this was around the time that my dad was passing away, I think, and suddenly you kind of take stock of what you want to do in life.
Yes.
And it dawned on me that yes, my passion was writing. I'd actually tried to write a book a number of times throughout my life, but I was just too busy to do it. And you read all of these stories about, oh, you should write 100 words a day, and eventually you'll have a book. But we all know as writers that's not correct.
It's easier said than done.
Well, for starters, it takes you an hour to get into the mindset to write.
Yes.
And some days it comes and some days it doesn't. So anyway, I kind of realized that, and then I went into work one day and I said, okay, I'd like to go 4 days a week. And I freed up a day a week to write.
Fantastic.
And then I published my first book 3 years after that, and then the second one about a year after that, and then I've got a third one in the works that I just haven't got time to finish.
Well, you've got the bug though, haven't you? Clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, Simon, look, well, thank you again for being on Pod Street. What's the easiest way? I guess the website is where people need to go if they want to enter their short story, which is fable.world. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely right. They can read some more about what we're trying to do at Fable there. But we're also not just looking for short stories. So what we're also looking for is people to sign up as reader judges. So if anyone's interested in helping out to judge as a reader, they go to the same place, sign up as a reader judge, and once they've read, I think it's 25 stories, they would then get a voucher from us for $50 for I think it's Amazon that we're offering. So the idea is that we're not expecting people just to read short stories. It'd be nice, I'm sure they do, but we're also prepared to reward that as well.
Oh, that's lovely. I might even sign up myself. I'm I'm actually judging another short story competition at the moment, so I do understand the commitment involved. But it's such important work, isn't it? And it's enjoyable too, to be honest. Yeah. The just the sheer variety of stories you're reading and as part of the process is almost a reward in itself.
Yeah, absolutely, that's right. And because there are no, there's no brief on ours, it's a completely open brief. When we go through and we look at judging these short story competitions, I'm expecting that there could be about absolutely anything.
Yeah, well, that is, it's almost like not knowing what to expect at all is amazing.
Scary, yeah.
Right. Totally, 100%. Yeah, you got goodness knows what kinds of crazy stories you might encounter, along with some really special things. But that's all part of the fun, I guess. Well, look, thanks again, Simon.
Absolutely.
As I say, let's stay in touch. Good luck, not just with the short story, but with Fable. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be a success. I just think there's a need for these kinds of different pathways to publishing, I think they like to say, but also for the readers as well.
Yeah.
So good on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
No problems at all.